what if the money in your wallet isn't actually a tool you're using, but a cage that is actively rewiring the biology of your brain?
Yeah, I mean, it's a deeply unsettling premise. We really like to think we're, entirely in control of our environment, especially the systems we build ourselves.
Right, totally. Well, welcome to our deep dive. I am so thrilled you're joining us today because we are tackling some truly just paradigm-shifting source material.
It really is.
We're analyzing excerpts from this fascinating piece called The Architect of the Invisible Cage.
Mm.
And our mission today is to really dig into a highly scientific debate centered on the concepts of a thinker known as time traveler.
Right, and in the text, this debate plays out between two distinct perspectives, which makes it so engaging. You have Maya, who serves as this relentless, skeptical devil's advocate.
She pushes back on everything.
Exactly. And then you have Nick, who counters her pushback with, hard data from neuroscience and evolutionary history.
And they're essentially circling this one massive, really provocative question, which is, has money, a tool that humanity invented to serve us, quietly become our master?
It forces you to really look at the foundational architecture of your daily life. Like, we swim in this financial water every single day without ever questioning what the water is actually made of.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if someone walked up to me on the street and told me money was an invisible cage, my immediate reaction would be like a massive eye roll.
Oh, for sure. Same here.
And that's exactly where the skepticism in our source material begins. Like Maya gives this very practical pushback. Money isn't some philosophical thought experiment
Yeah.
or a grand conspiracy. It's just reality.
Right, you need it.
Exactly. You need it to buy groceries, to pay your rent, put gas in your car. It's just necessary mechanism for exchange. So calling it a cage feels, well, a bit hyperbolic, doesn't it?
It's the most reflexive defense we have. I mean, when we're challenged on the system, we immediately point to its basic utility. And, that's not wrong. Currency absolutely solved a massive logistical problem of exchange.
Yeah.
But pointing to that utility completely ignores the psychological side effects of the tool over time.
I was trying to wrap my head around this, and I started thinking about a different piece of technology. Think about your smartphone.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right. When the smartphone first hit the market, it was marketed entirely as a tool, like a digital Swiss Army knife to, check your email and map your driving route.
Something you keep in your pocket.
Exactly. But look at our behavior now. Think about your own commute this morning. That tool dictates when you wake up. It dictates how you walk down a busy sidewalk, like head down, totally absorbed.
Rubbing into people, yeah.
Yeah. And through social media algorithms, it actively alters how you value yourself and your peers. So the smartphone hasn't just helped us communicate. It has fundamentally reorganized our neurological baseline.
Wow. Yeah, that is a phenomenal way to frame it. And the argument here is that money has done the exact same thing, just on a much, much longer timeline.
Right.
The counter-argument in the text actually uses a simpler analogy, which is a hammer.
Okay, a hammer.
Yeah, so a hammer is highly practical. You use it to drive nails, to build things. But the danger isn't whether the hammer is useful. The danger emerges when the tool quietly becomes the architect of the house you're living in.
Ah, I see.
What's fascinating here is that the critique isn't an attack on the concept of trade or currency itself. It's not saying money is inherently evil.
It's pointing out a complete subversion of power. Like a tool is supposed to sit in the drawer until you actually need it.
Exactly. The source material asks us to recognize that this mechanism we invented has systematically begun to define us. It's not just building the house anymore.
It's drawing up the blueprints.
Right. It's drawing up the blueprints for how human beings interact, how we measure our own success, and most dangerously, how we calculate human worth.
But that leap from, a useful hammer to an invisible architect that requires some heavy lifting, how exactly does a system of exchange become a cage that alters human nature?
Well,
because the typical defense of capitalism, or just our modern economy in general, is that it perfectly mirrors human nature. You constantly hear the argument that people are just naturally greedy and the system just accommodates that.
yeah, that's the standard line. But the source material takes this philosophical metaphor and drops it straight into hard biology.
Right into the science.
Exactly. This is where the debate moves past opinions and into objective science. Specifically, the science of neuroplasticity.
Which is how the brain changes, right?
Yes, the human brain is incredibly plastic, which means it physically adapts. It grows new neural pathways and rewires itself based on the environment it's forced to operate in.
It responds directly to the stimuli around it.
And the reward structures, yeah.
I struggle with this a bit, though. Like, Look at a pair of toddlers fighting over a single toy in a sandbox. That impulse to hoard, to say mine, that feels incredibly innate.
Oh, sure.
So when people say greed is just human nature,
Yeah.
are they completely wrong? Are you really telling me that greed is just a byproduct of a financial system?
It's a really great objection. Toddlers do exhibit possessiveness, obviously, but they also exhibit extreme empathy and a desire to share.
That's true.
The question is, which of those traits does the environment actively cultivate into adulthood? The text leans into specific neurobiology here, highlighting mirror neurons and oxytocin.
Okay, remind us about mirror neurons.
So mirror neurons are fascinating. They don't just fire when you perform an action. They literally fire in your brain when you watch someone else perform an action or experience an emotion.
Wait, really? Just from watching?
Yes. If you see someone stub their toe, your brain physically simulates a fraction of that pain. They're the biological baseline for human empathy.
Wow.
And then you have oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, which is chemically designed to reward us for social connection.
So on a cellular level, we are quite literally wired to connect, empathize, and work together.
Yes. Our underlying biological hardware evolved for cooperation. But here is the friction, right? If you take a highly adaptive plastic brain and place it into a societal structure that measures survival entirely by wealth accumulation.
A system that actively rewards ruthless competition.
Right. The brain adapts. To survive, it begins to suppress that cooperative wiring and hyper-develops the competitive hoarding behaviors instead.
We just adapt to the environment we're dropped into.
Precisely. And the tragedy highlighted in the text is the misdiagnosis that follows. We look at the resulting hyper-competitive, greedy behavior in adults and we shrug and say, well, that's just human nature.
Right.
The text provides this brilliant metaphor. It says we mistake the cage for the animal.
Mistake the cage for the animal. That is such a haunting visual. It's like if you take a wild animal that is naturally meant to roam over miles of open territory and you lock it in a tiny concrete cage,
It's going to act out.
it's going to start exhibiting neurotic behaviors. It might pace endlessly, act aggressively toward its keepers, maybe even start pulling out its own fur. And if you didn't know any better, you'd observe it and write down in your notebook, this is an aggressive neurotic species.
When in reality, you aren't observing the animal's nature at all.
You're observing the trauma of the cage.
Exactly. You are judging the animal entirely by the parameters of its captivity.
But wait, if this cooperative wiring is so deeply embedded in our biology, how do you explain the broader arc of evolution? The immediate pushback, which Maya, the devil's advocate in the text, brings up, is Darwin.
Right, the Darwin defense.
Isn't this competitive drive just survival of the fittest? I mean, if we are out there battling for resources, aren't we just acting out the basic, undeniable laws of evolutionary biology?
That is perhaps the most widely accepted misconception of our time, honestly. The source material spends significant time debunking this pop culture version of Darwinism.
The pop culture version being like a cutthroat reality TV show where the biggest, meanest guy with a club wins.
Exactly. But that's not what Charles Darwin actually observed or wrote. When Darwin talked about the fittest, he didn't mean the most ruthless or the most aggressive. He meant the most adaptable to their environment.
And adaptability doesn't automatically mean violence.
Exactly the opposite, historically speaking. If you look at early human tribes surviving harsh winters or facing massive predators, the ones who survived didn't do it by fighting each other for the last piece of meat.
Right, they would have just died out.
They survived by huddling for warmth, hunting in coordinated packs, and sharing resources. Throughout human evolutionary history, being the most adaptable has overwhelmingly meant being the most cooperative.
The text points to this really clearly, actually. It asks you to look at the grand achievements of our species. We built massive, sprawling cities.
We decoded the human genome.
Right, we put rovers on Mars. None of those things were accomplished by a lone alpha male beating everyone else into submission.
Cooperation isn't just a nice societal bonus, It is the fundamental engine of human civilization.
So this brings up a massive contradiction then. If our neurobiology is heavily weighted toward empathy and our evolutionary success was entirely dependent on cooperation, why does modern society feel so isolating?
That's the million-dollar question.
Why does the corporate ladder feel so vicious?
So the analysis introduces this concept of the inherited map. We are all essentially handed a false narrative about how the world fundamentally operates. Think about how this map is installed. It's not a single lecture.
It's a million micro reinforcements.
Exactly. It's the media tropes of the lone genius who doesn't need anyone. It's the myth of the entirely self-made billionaire. It's an educational system that increasingly values, standardized testing against your peers over collaborative problem solving.
We're given this binary zero-sum worldview. There are winners and there are losers.
And if you're not winning, you are actively failing.
Right.
But this narrative isn't biological truth. It is a manufactured story. And why does it exist? Because it serves the architecture of the current system. Well, if we fully recognized our inherent cooperative power, we would likely dismantle a system that relies on artificial scarcity. But if we genuinely believe we are naturally ruthless competitors, the inherited map keeps us exactly where the system needs us to be.
Divided and exhausted.
Yes, it keeps us divided against our neighbors, utterly exhausted from the daily rat race, and ultimately perfectly obedient.
But there's a missing link here, I think. Let's talk about agency. Because nobody is physically forcing a person to take a grueling 80-hour-a-week corporate job that they hate just to buy things they don't need.
Sure.
People choose their careers. They choose their lifestyles. So if this competitive map is a complete fiction, how does it get installed so successfully in every single one of us without us screaming in protest?
The answer there lies in the blank slate period of human development. When you are born, you do not come into this world desiring a corner office. You don't naturally crave a diversified stock portfolio or, like, a luxury car.
No, obviously not.
Infants and young children are essentially biological sponges of oxytocin. They're primed for connection, curiosity, and play.
You see this in kids.
Yeah.
They don't care what brand of clothes another kid is wearing on the playground. They just want to know if they want to play tag.
Exactly. But from the moment we enter the societal machine, this inherited map is carefully laid over that blank slate. We are systematically taught what success looks like, and we are shown what failure means.
There's an incredibly poignant example from the source text that perfectly illustrates this cognitive dissonance. It describes a child who possesses an innate, deep-seated drive to be an artist. They are genuinely fulfilled by creation.
Yeah, that part was powerful.
But by the time that child is 25 years old, they are sitting at a desk asking themselves, which career path is going to make me the most money?
And society applauds that transition. We call it growing up. We call it being realistic and responsible.
So what does this all mean? When that 25-year-old actively chooses a high-stress finance job over the art they actually love, is that a free choice? I mean, it really challenges you to look at your own resume, your own daily routines, and wonder how much of your trajectory was a conscious decision.
And how much was just a successful hack of your biological reward systems by societal expectations?
Exactly.
The ultimate takeaway here is the illusion of autonomy. We feel like we are making rational, independent choices as adults. We think we're being pragmatic. But in reality, we are operating within a cognitive framework that was installed so gradually and reinforced so consistently that we don't even notice it overriding our innate human nature.
It's invisible.
Right. We think we are writing the script of our lives, but we are just flawlessly reciting the lines we were handed.
Okay, so let's say we accept this. We are operating on an installed false map, completely mistaking the cage for the animal, and we want to find our way out. But this raises a massive roadblock, one that Maya, the skeptical voice in our source material, really hammers on.
Yeah, the diversity issue.
Right. If we are trying to find a shared truth to escape this invisible cage, how do we do that given the sheer diversity of human experience? People grow up in vastly different socioeconomic circumstances. They have different religious backgrounds, different cultural values.
Right.
Doesn't this whole theory assume we are all exactly the same?
It's a vital critique. Human experience is inherently subjective. If I try to convince you to abandon your map based entirely on my personal opinions or cultural background, it's not going to work.
It just becomes an argument.
Subjective arguments inevitably lead to clashing. If your socioeconomic background taught you one set of values and my religious upbringing taught me another, we will just spend our time fighting over whose map is superior.
We just end up in endless culture wars.
Exactly. Which is why the source material introduces a concept it calls the infallible society.
I have to admit, infallible is a loaded word.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit authoritarian, almost like, I don't know, an infallible dictator telling you what to think.
It does sound intimidating, I'll give you that. But the text makes a crucial distinction. It doesn't mean a society governed by dogmatic opinions or absolute rulers. It means a society governed by objective physical evidence.
Okay, evidence.
The infallible society doesn't ask you to agree with someone's political philosophy. It asks you to acknowledge mechanics that are true regardless of your perspective. Gravity, for instance, does not care about your cultural background.
It pulls you down all the same.
Right, and neuroplasticity operates the same way whether you believe in it or not.
So it's about looking at the hard data of our existence.
Yes. This raises an important question when trying to build a functional society. Should we rely on the subjective stories we've inherited, or should we look at the undeniable biological and historical data?
And the historical data presented here is grim, but incredibly revealing. The text urges the reader to look at the history of civilizations that have collapsed, and there is a clear, repeating pattern.
There really is.
Civilizations don't usually fall just because of outside invaders. They collapse from within when they begin to systematically prioritize accumulation over circulation.
That is the defining mechanism. Think of a society as a macro version of a biological organism. The resources, the capital, the money that is the blood of the organism.
Right.
For a human body to be healthy and functional, blood must circulate continuously to every single cell. It has to flow.
And if blood stops flowing and pools in one specific area of the body, that's a blood clot.
Exactly. When blood fails to circulate, the surrounding tissue literally necrotizes and dies. When a society's architecture allows a fraction of the population to hoard the vast majority of resources, when capital stops circulating to the middle and lower classes, you get economic necrosis.
Which we see playing out.
You see it in the real world everywhere. Hollowed-out manufacturing towns, crumbling infrastructure, underfunded schools, and rising desperation.
Yeah.
That isn't a political opinion.
No, just mechanics.
It is the historical, mechanical record of societal collapse. The Infallible Society simply asks us to acknowledge that biological reality and build a system optimized for circulation and cooperation rather than fatal accumulation.
It is a profound shift in perspective. And as the source material draws to a close, the skeptical voice we've been following finally has this moment of clarity.
It's a great turning point.
The realization hits that the ultimate goal of these ideas isn't to win a debate. The goal isn't to force you to adopt a new political ideology. It's simply to present the objective evidence and trust you to connect the dots.
Yeah.
The text includes this beautiful quote, "The mind, once stretched by a new idea, never returns to its original dimensions."
It's about empowerment through awareness. The concept of an infallible society doesn't require blind followers. It desperately needs investigators. It needs individuals who are willing to look critically at the machinery around them.
And that leads to the ultimate aha moment of this entire deep dive. What actually happens when someone does the work? When you finally see the water you've been swimming in your entire life? The answer to the text is simple. You become free.
But not because a savior came along and unlocked the door for you?
No. You become free because you realize the cage was never actually locked in the first place.
The lock was a fiction.
The lock was just that inherited map quietly installed in your mind. The minute you recognize that the story is a manufactured tool designed to keep you obedient to a system of accumulation, the bars of the cage just dissolve.
The story was never yours. Realizing that is an incredibly liberating experience, but it also places a massive responsibility squarely on your shoulders.
Oh, absolutely.
Because once you see the mechanics of the cage, you can't unsee them. You can't just go back to sleep.
Which brings us to the final, direct call to action presented in the text. The question isn't just about waking up. The infallible question is, who is ready to pick up the pen?
Meaning, who is ready to stop reciting the old script and start drawing a completely new map? Right.
It's the threshold every person has to cross once the illusion of the invisible cage is broken.
And we want to pose that exact question to you. Who is ready to pick up the pen? We've unpacked the neuroplasticity of our brains, the truth about evolutionary cooperation, and the silent installation of the false map.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. We've seen how deeply our design environment shapes our minds. And it leaves you with one final, haunting thought to chew on.
What's that?
Well, we established today that the human brain is so wonderfully plastic that its innate biology can literally be hijacked, right?
Right.
We let a system that rewards relentless wealth and competition rewire us. We let the cage alter the animal. But think about the reverse. What if we actually picked up the pen?
Oh, wow.
What would happen to our mirror neurons, to our collective oxytocin levels, if we intentionally redesigned our daily physical environment to measure human worth entirely by cooperation and circulation?
If it works one way, it has to work the other. Exactly. If our biology adapts so quickly to a negative competitive environment, could we literally evolve an entirely new, highly empathetic human mind in a single generation?
That is an incredible possibility to
It
consider.
really is. Keep questioning the invisible waters around you.